Yeah, like we have these great stories and encounters of like God revealing Himself in to be so real to us. But like, actually, I also want like curious to know like are there like specific attributes of God that like He in all these revelations of showing Himself in your lives that like actually in mine also, right, that that really like excite or like that you love. Yeah.
I've got a story to share. Actually, two stories. So what I love about God is that He's so countercultural. Meaning that, in this world, I've realized, being in school, being in work, in anything, the world always values strength and will always single out people who are incredibly gifted, talented, successful, and lavish on them all the praise. And God is not like that. Like, God loves the weakest person, and He loves to use and partner with people who are just so bad at something. Yeah. And how do I know that? Because that's me. I remember just a couple years back, I started this PhD program, right? Which is insane because I'm not even a subject expert in what I'm getting a PhD in, and that already doesn't make sense. But anyways, I started off in this program, and my supervisor invited me to this event. And at the end of the event, my supervisor comes up to me and he's like, Jasmine, can you give like the concluding speech? He didn't give me any advance notice. He's like, okay, so it's going to be in 15 minutes. Girl. You're going to address a room full of important people and share what you've learned and just somehow just end off the night. And I was like, are you serious? Yeah, I was so, and then because I just started out, I really didn't want to displease him. And I was like, okay, sure. And yes, I'm someone who's not afraid of public speaking, but I hate being called out without any notice. Like, I don't like speaking spontaneously. Even in school, like if we've had speeches, I always need to read off a script. So I was freaking out. My heart was pounding, not because I thought God was real, not because I was having an encounter with God. I was just scared. So I was really, really scared. And I just remember, okay, like God, what do I do? And so I had like 4 or 5 points that I was like, okay, maybe I can say these things. But honestly, I was like, it doesn't even sound good in my head. So I can't even imagine how it'd sound if I were to say it out loud. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, do not be afraid of what you will say, for at that time, the Holy Spirit will put His word in your mouth. And honestly, like, the thing about the Christian life is that you really need to just trust that will happen. And you're like, okay. So they called my name like 15 minutes later, and I'm not even joking, okay? Like 30 seconds before they call me, like this thought, this idea dropped into my mind it came from heaven because I didn't even think of that. And when I stood up, everything that I said was not planned. Like all the things that I had rehearsed in my mind for 15 minutes, that went out the door. And I started to say what the Lord put in my mind like 30 seconds before. And afterwards, I was impressed. I was like, that was so good. And like, there were people there that were like, oh, that was really, really good. Like, I really remember this one guy. He was like the head of the president of whatever organization. And I was so shocked when he came up to me and he was like, that was actually really good. And my supervisor, who's not a Christian, also said that was really good. And I told him, I said, well, that was a miracle. And he's like, oh, well, I don't really believe in miracles, but I was like, that was a miracle. Okay, but I want to just like segue that into something that just happened this past weekend. I don't know if both you, Charlotte, and you, Chelsea, have like experienced this, but how God really surprises us, especially in our low moments. So again, like I've been struggling with another one of my PhD projects and just kind of thinking like, God, why? Like, why did you choose me to do this? Like, I'm so discouraged. I'm weak and blah, blah, blah. But the Lord's like, nope, I called you. And I went to church and I was encouraged by the sermon, but I was still thinking about the problem that I was having with this academic research project. And I leave the service because it finished. I went to the bathroom, and it just so happens that on Sunday, our church youth group was doing some like promo of a big event. So they had a lot of their posters inside the bathroom. And alongside those event posters, they had testimony. Basically, like they had printed out little posters of stories that people had written into the church from the young adults group about how God like helped them. And so as I was literally walking out of the restroom, there was a poster, and it was by a student named Jasmine. And the whole testimony was about how God really helped her in her studies. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's crazy. Let me take a photo. So I'm like, oh God maybe sent this message to me because it's the same name as me. I read the testimony, and I realized that I was the one that wrote that testimony. And I had sent it in like 9 years ago.
9 years? Wow.
Yeah, I had written that testimony into the church 9 years ago. And because I wrote that when I was 19. It happened when I was 19. Yeah. So the church, I go to a big church, right? With I'm sure thousands of testimonies are being sent in. And the church happens to print the one that I sent in 9 years ago. And the crazy thing is, like when I finally realized, wait, that's my testimony, the youth group members came into the restroom to start tearing down all the posters. And I was like, I was there like minutes before it would have been torn down, and I would have never seen it. And the Lord was like, Jasmine, I planned all of that. So there's so many moments in my life where you are at the right place at the right time. And there is like a 1 in like a 1 billionth chance that could have happened. And that couldn't have happened if God had not arranged for all these things to happen for you to just be there in that moment. So I love that about God, that he can just put you where you need to be to encourage you, to just show you how loved you are. I felt so loved in that moment. And, and I actually finished the major project that I needed to get done. Like I was so pumped up. I stayed up the whole night and finished the project after that. Like I have like that poster now on my
you put it as your wallpaper.
Yeah, because
it just happened.
It just happened. I couldn't believe it. That was insane to me.
That's very sweet of God to do that. And I think beyond like all the different characteristics or like the great attributes that we think about God, like, oh, he's majestic, he's omnipresent, like all these big words, I really appreciate it when, not to say that we humanize God, but he really does help us understand him in a way where it's very comprehensible to us, just like these little acts. Like he notices, that he notices you, that he's even in the littlest detail, and he sees you. And that's, I think, for me also, I really do love that about God, that, he will let me know that he sees me and he knows me. And I think because, I think like you, because you're studying your PhD and whatnot, I'm also studying. I'm actually in Bible school. And the past term, we did a module on Christian discipleship. I chose the book of John to do a 30-day daily devotional. So I read about the life of Jesus. I read about what he did with his disciples. And I think the one thing that stood out to me the most, which is not any of his greatness or like the big words that we are used to hearing, but it's actually that he's just so calm. He's so unfazed by everything. And I really like this sentence that he says, I think in addressing, I think either the Pharisees or the disciples, I can't really remember, but he does say this sentence that goes, you have heard that it is this, but now I tell you that it is this. Yeah. And he, in that moment, is addressing misunderstandings that the Jewish people might have about the law. And he was also very clear that he's not here to abolish the law of the Jews, but he's here to kind of renew that. And I think also when observing how Jesus led his life, he was really just very calm. And I think I really like that, because in my own life, there's so much fear, there's so much hustle and bustle, there's so much anxiety also. And that one thing that really grounds me is God is just calm. Like, there's no need to worry so much. Yeah, and I also think about the image of him like calming the storm in Sea of Galilee, is it? Yeah, where all the disciples were in the boat. Yeah, and then he was just like saying, "You of little faith," to Peter, right? Because Peter looked away from Jesus and he fell into the water. And I was just thinking, like, wow, if only I could be that calm and full of faith to a point where I would just, like free fall into trust and not worry about so many things. Yeah, that's what I really love about God, that he's just so stable, so safe. I think safe is the word that I really latch onto when it comes to my relationship with God. I think what I mentioned just now. So and he really found me in that and put me in his safety net. Yeah, so that I wouldn't fall off the cliff somewhere. Yeah, I think that's for me.
I like how creative God is. Yeah, and the thing is that thing of like when you were saying that God is so big, but it's not that we humanize him, but he just knows how to speak to us in a way that we can understand him. I love praying for people and like receiving images for them, like prophetically, and sometimes when I release them, like I see that God is really speaking to them. And it's so interesting because I know that these are not my own thoughts, because a lot of them, like I would never have in my life have imagined a visual like this and then attribute it to the thing that I know that God is saying. Like I would see an image and then God would be like, this is what I'm saying, and I'm like, huh? And I say, and then like as I release it, the words come and it makes sense, and I was like, that's so cool. I love it. Yeah, But like it's so amazing because like God knows that they need to hear it. Like there was one girl, this is a very simple one, but the visual I had was this tree, and I just told her like, it looks like the tree from Bridgerton. Yeah, that title plate, the very floral, like very colorful, bright tree. And then like, and I don't even remember what I was talking about anymore. But at the end, she was like, oh, actually I love Bridgerton. So I totally knew what you were talking about when you started describing the tree. I saw it and I was like, that's so cute, Yeah, like I love it. Like I think God is really cute in that way. One of the first, like when we talk about God as a father, a son, like a friend, like a lover even, one of that first relationship that I experienced with God was as a friend. I think when I was young, I didn't have friends. Like growing up, as a child, I didn't have many. I really struggled because I didn't know how to make friends, and I suck also as a person. When I was young, I was not very nice. Yeah, because a lot of hurts and things like that. But there was this moment, like a few years ago, I went on a journey of inner healing. And one of the first things that happened was, around that time, I was actually doing a big spring clean of my room. It was really a deep clean. I was really dumping things on the floor, and then like I would come home to like, it was around COVID also, so there would just be like things all over my floor, and I was slowly like freaking pans, like I was wiping down pans. Like I was in that space because just a lot of things that I hadn't touched for a very long time, and I was trying to dispose and things, but over time it was also quite overwhelming. So something that I thought would just take 3 days ended up taking months. And also while doing inner healing, like God was really opening a lot of can of worms, right? And it was just a very intense time as well. But it was so interesting that there was one session when we were kind of just journeying through like a traumatic memory that I had. And towards the end of that memory, like we were doing this, it was a prophetic visualization, right? And it started with a memory that we were journeying through, then it came into a prophetic realm of what God was saying to me now in the vision. It was so strange. The memory was a kitchen from my childhood, but somehow it was also a kitchen from the house that I live in now, right, my present home. And then it transitioned to my room door, which is right next to the kitchen. And into this messy space where Jesus was there with me, and he cleaned my room with me. Yeah, so he cleaned my room with me, and then at the end, and then like, so the counselor was like, oh, so how does it make you feel? And I say, oh, I feel like very easy because Jesus is doing it with me, and like it's just so relaxed and like I don't feel stressed. And then after that, so the room is cleaned, and then what happens, right? So he leaves the room, and then so then I was silent, and then the counselor was like, oh, so what are you thinking now? What does it make you feel? And I said, I don't think it's right. He shouldn't leave the room. He should be in the room with me. Yeah. And then she said, so what is Jesus saying? So I really saw Jesus. The door was closed, but he was standing outside the bedroom door. And then he said, I will be right here anytime you need me. Yeah, and it was so interesting. It was so interesting because I was reminded of this recently, because something that God has been speaking to me a lot is about building him a dwelling place. Yeah, and it was so interesting because when you think about dwelling place and you think about home, right? Building a home for the Lord to be in. And I felt like God reminded me of that memory of how even like building a home for the Lord, right? It's not meant to be difficult. Like Jesus is actually there with us to do it with us, like to journey with us, to show us how to do it right. And in a way that, at the end of the day, it still looked like my room. It wasn't like a completely different room. It was just my room but clean. And it was just like God saying that it's whatever you have in the best way that you can give it. Yeah, and that's the space that I want for you to be able to dwell with me. Yeah, it's really a relationship that God wouldn't. You can't have someone come into your house and say, I'll clean your room for you, and then they might end up doing, if they don't know you personally, they wouldn't know where to put everything. Yeah, but Jesus knows us so well that the room will still look like ours, but it's better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Actually, sometimes I'll think about when we get to heaven, and sometimes I'll think about like what
the room that we will have.
Yeah, and I actually don't think about a room. I do think about a mansion.
I do that. I do think of that as well. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just something that I don't know if it's coping mechanism or things like that. Yeah, but when I do feel like I am not very focused on God, or like if I'm consumed by other things, I will think about my life with him in the new heaven and new earth. Wow. And
yes, I love
how I just get to spend the rest of my days there. And the whole concept of heaven is, it's very broad. It's also, I think, beyond all of our understanding actually. But yeah, it is said in the Bible that, there's no pain, there's no suffering. So I would think there's definitely no concept of the human toil and things like that. And it would just be so much love and joy and, just all the good feelings that you have experienced in your human life with God. It'd be so much more amplified, I think, when we get to heaven. Yeah, something I look forward to and think about. Not that I want to die, but it's just
I do look forward to dying, but not in a morbid way.
Yeah, I agree.
But just like looking forward to what it means to really be able to just focus in relationship with God. Yeah, I just want to add something because I had that thought just now. But when you talked about your house in heaven, yesterday at Awaken Jen, they were sharing about Hebrew weddings. Yeah, so he was talking, and so the thing about the Hebrew wedding, I don't remember the terms, but so it basically how they broke it down was the first part was when they talk about the price of the bride, which is to say like how much you value the bride and how much the father is willing to pay for the bride. Right, and so then the second part is the engagement. So now the father has said that I've paid a hefty price.
You mean the father-in-law?
Yes, the father of the groom. Yes,
okay.
The father, the man's, the father-in-law will say like, I've paid a hefty price for this bride, and this is the engagement part, right? They obviously don't necessarily call it engagement, but it's the father will now come with the son to bring something to the bride that without consummation, they are basically saying that this bride is now mine. She belongs to the son, right? In our current day, we also think of it as an engagement ring. Yeah, I used to say she's taken. Yeah. Then, and this is the interesting part, is that the father will now say to the son, we're going to go back and they're going to build the house so that later when he comes back to get the bride, there will be a house. So he's basically going back to prepare a place for the bride. It blew my mind because it was so amazing and it was so interesting because yesterday before the session I had been talking about how, me and a friend had been talking about how the Bible and the Jewish culture is full of rituals that symbolize the heart of God for his people. Yeah, every ritual, it's not meant to be something that you have to do or something you have to keep to, but because everything represents a aspect of the love of God for his people, right? And this was so interesting to me that even in the Hebrew wedding, that it truly represents Jesus and his purpose in coming to pay a price for his bride. Yeah, to tell the world that we belong to him, and then to go back to heaven and say I'm preparing a place for you. And we know that it's gonna be beautiful because we can't even imagine the scope of beauty that God can see, right? And then later to come back and say now it's ready, are you ready? Let's go back together. But in that moment, in that period, it is actually a season of difficulty for the bride as well, because she's not gonna be with the husband. She's going to be surrounded by other people who might say hey, I can pay more for you. Are you gonna come with me? Yeah, or is she gonna stand her ground and say, I've already been paid for, I already belong to someone, and that's who I'm waiting for. He's gonna come back and fetch me. Yeah, and I had it was such a deep revelation of also consecration, and the beauty of the love of God, and also the conviction of staying true to the love that God has for us, because the truth is, he has paid a heavy price for us. Yeah, and also the excitement of being in a home that he built literally for us. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
New body, new everything.
Man, none of these scars. Yeah, I believe that heaven, it will look like the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
Because that was God's original intention for mankind.
Do you think there will still be the two trees?
I don't think. Actually, I'm
Tree
not
of
sure.
life. The book of Revelation says there will be the tree of life. It no longer makes any mention of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Yeah. I guess we got enough of that in this world. Enough of the knowledge of evil and good. We don't need that anymore.
Nope.
I think when the Lord placed both trees in front of Adam and Eve, right? What Adam and Eve failed to realize is that the tree of life was actually God's love. That love surpasses knowledge. And we as human beings settle for knowledge when love is the higher way.
Yeah. And actually the thing is that the best revelations that I've ever had came out of love. Yeah. It's not that love means you will not have knowledge, but it is the revelation. The revelation is so much deeper when it comes from a place of knowing the heart of God. Yeah, and it's not just knowing that, okay, I'm going to do this, but knowing that, this is why it's meaningful. Yeah.
Yeah. Did they go over the part about Jewish weddings where when the bride is waiting for her groom, it can be a long process. It can be a couple of years. And the groom will send his best friend.
I didn't know about that, but they talked about the Holy Spirit.
Yes. So the best
so
friend would be the Holy
sweet.
Spirit, and the best friend will come pretty often to update her. Go like, the house is getting built. It's like almost done, girl. Don't worry. It looks so good. So that, so that she can be rest assured. Oh, and the bride has to have her candle lit.
Oil.
Yeah. Whenever the best friend comes over, he'll go back to the, groom and he'll let her know, or he'll let the groom know that, she's still waiting for you. Her candle is still lit. It's still burning.
Speaking of lit candles, this is my iPad wallpaper.
Oh,
so cute.
that is so sweet.
I got this off, I think it's YMI. Yeah, they always do like wallpapers.
I love
and all
their
that.
illustrations.
Yeah, and I
what's it
found
called?
this very meaningful.
YMI.
Why
Why am I?
YMI?
YMI. Yeah.
YMI. Okay.
It's a Christian. It's like this.
Yeah, but they really do like illustrations. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I found this very meaningful. I mean, it's just